The sky above Earth had never looked more serene. The clouds drifted lazily, and the sun gleamed off the vast oceans below. But it was all an illusion. Deep within the vacuum of space, far beyond the moon's orbit, something was amiss. A fleet of alien warships, sleek and menacing, slipped silently through the stars. They had arrived unnoticed, or so they thought. Inside one of the largest ships, Captain Zeloth stood in front of the massive viewport. His reptilian face, marked with the battle scars of countless campaigns, bore a satisfied grin. The commander of the Felker Empire, one of the most feared alien species in the galaxy, was about to add Earth to their ever-growing list of conquests. They had studied the humans for months, cataloging their weaknesses and determining the best approach for a swift invasion. But as he observed the distant planet, something gnawed at the back of his mind, a nagging sensation that this victory might not be as easy as it appeared. "Captain!" A voice interrupted his thoughts. Lieutenant Kale, his second-in-command, stepped forward, his dark eyes glowing with the intensity of his devotion. "All systems are ready. The attack is imminent." Zeloth's eyes narrowed as he turned to face his subordinate. "Good. Proceed as planned, Lieutenant. Earth will fall today." Kale hesitated, sensing his superior's unease. "Is something troubling you, Captain?" The alien leader's gaze flicked back to Earth, his yellow eyes piercing the vastness of space. "Just a feeling," Zeloth murmured. "A feeling that they aren't as defenseless as we believe." Kale shook his head. "The humans are weak. They have no defenses capable of stopping us. We will wipe them out in a matter of hours." Zeloth nodded slowly, but his mind was elsewhere. He had been in battles before, fought wars that spanned entire galaxies, but something about Earth, something about the humans, felt different. He couldn't place it, but the doubt gnawed at him. The humans had always been underestimated by other species. Perhaps it was time to make the same mistake. Meanwhile, far below the alien ships, in the heart of Washington, D.C., Lieutenant Mara Williams adjusted her uniform and checked her comms once more. As a top officer in the United States Space Force, she had trained for years, ready to defend the planet from all threats, both human and extraterrestrial. But today, despite her extensive training, she felt an unfamiliar weight in her stomach. Something was off. She could sense the tension in the air, as though the world itself was holding its breath. She had been in charge of several successful military operations, but this felt different. Her team had been notified of a potential alien fleet in the vicinity of Earth, but it was all speculative, until now. "Lieutenant Williams!" Her commanding officer's voice crackled through her comms, snapping her back to reality. "We have a situation. Satellite feeds are picking up multiple unidentified objects approaching from the far side of the moon. They're moving at an alarming speed." "Understood, sir," Mara replied, her voice steady despite the rush of adrenaline flooding her system. "I'll assemble my team immediately." Within minutes, she and her team of elite soldiers were in the command center. The massive display screens flickered to life, revealing the same images the satellites had captured: alien warships gliding through space with a speed and precision that spoke of advanced technology. The fleet was massive, far larger than anything the Earth's military had ever encountered. "How long until they reach us?" Mara asked, her eyes locked on the screen. 30 minutes, the analyst replied, tapping away at his console. "They're fast, but there's no way they'll be able to land without us intercepting them. We've got a defense perimeter in place." Mara didn't respond immediately. Her thoughts raced. 30 minutes. That was all they had. The best minds in Earth's defense forces had worked tirelessly to develop weapons that could potentially stand up to an alien attack, but this felt different. What if the aliens had prepared better? What if they had anticipated Earth's defense strategies? "All right," she said, her voice firm as she turned to face her team. "We fight. We hold this planet at all costs. I need everyone on high alert. Now." As the team mobilized, Mara couldn't help but glance back at the screen. The alien ships were now clearly visible, sleek, black, and deadly. Each one seemed to pulse with an energy that made her skin crawl. Whoever they were, they had underestimated humanity. Back in space, Zeloth watched as his fleet grew ever closer to Earth. The planets in the solar system seemed so fragile now, so small. Earth, once just a blip on the galactic radar, was now the next target for conquest. But as the fleet approached the planet's orbit, a strange ripple ran through the communication channels. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission from Earth," Kale reported, his voice tinged with surprise. Zeloth raised an eyebrow. "From Earth? Impossible. How could they?" The screen flickered, and the face of a human appeared. The transmission was pixelated, but there was no mistaking the confidence in the woman's voice. "This is Lieutenant Mara Williams, United States Space Force. We are fully aware of your fleet's approach. You have 30 minutes to turn around before we consider this an act of war. If you do not leave immediately, we will retaliate with everything we have. Earth does not yield." Zeloth stared at the screen in stunned silence. For a moment, all he could hear was the hum of the ship's engines. Then, a low laugh rumbled from his chest. "How quaint," he muttered. "They think they can stop us. Prepare the invasion force, Kale. The humans are about to learn just how fragile they are." But in his gut, something still stirred, an unease that refused to go away. He would soon find out just how wrong he was. Mara stood before her team, watching the countdown tick away. The human fleet might have been small, but their resolve was unyielding. This wasn't just about defending Earth anymore. This was about survival. And for the first time in a long while, Mara felt a flicker of hope. The aliens had underestimated Earth, and humanity would prove them wrong. The tension in the command center was palpable. Lieutenant Mara Williams stood before the main display, her eyes scanning the live feed of the alien fleet now positioned just beyond Earth's orbit. The ships, though distant, were an undeniable presence, dark, sleek, and menacing, like shadows cast upon the stars. Her team was already in position, ready to defend their planet, but the weight of the situation still hung heavily on her shoulders. 30 minutes until impact. The tactical officer, Lieutenant Chin, announced, his voice a calm contrast to the storm of thoughts swirling in Mara's mind. She nodded but didn't speak, her gaze fixed on the fleet. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the table, the weight of their preparations bearing down on her. They had a defense system in place, but could it hold against this overwhelming force? "Lieutenant," Chin continued, his eyes flicking to a series of rapidly changing data readouts. "Our sensors are picking up their weapon signatures. They're preparing for something big. Whatever they're planning, it's not a standard orbital strike." Mara felt the knot in her stomach tighten. "They're planning an invasion," she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "They're coming to the surface." "Yes, ma'am. We've already alerted all cities with priority defense zones. The ground forces are mobilizing." Mara took a deep breath and turned toward her team. "We're not just defending the surface," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the tension. "We're defending our homes, our families, and our future. We stand united, and we won't back down. Get to your stations." Her words rang with authority, but beneath her composed exterior, doubts lingered. The alien fleet was far more advanced than anything Earth had ever seen. They had no experience with an invasion of this scale. The unknowns gnawed at her, but there was no time to dwell on them. The countdown was ticking. Up in space, Zeloth paced before the command center of his flagship, the Felker warship Vorath. His fingers drummed against the control panel, his sharp eyes scanning the battle grid. The human's transmission still echoed in his mind. "We will retaliate with everything we have." A threat, yes, but one that seemed impossible to believe. "Captain," Kale's voice broke through his thoughts. "We are in position. Our weapon systems are primed. The Earth's defenses are no match for our firepower. Shall we begin?" Zeloth turned to his lieutenant, his gaze as cold and calculating as ever. "Yes, begin the strike," he ordered, his tone unwavering. The alien fleet moved into formation, and Zeloth's mind raced through the plans laid out by the Felker Empire. He had studied the humans, monitored their defenses. He had seen their missiles, their energy shields, their planetary weapons, but none of it had been enough to sway his conviction. Their weapons were primitive compared to the Felkers. But as the first wave of destruction began to launch, missiles streaking across the stars toward Earth, Zelotha's unease returned. Something was wrong. Back on Earth, Mara's hands flew across the controls as she prepared her team for the imminent attack. The screens around her were filled with data, the countdown ticking down relentlessly. Her focus was absolute, each moment moving faster than the last. "Missiles incoming!" Chen's voice rang out, breaking the silence. Mara's heart skipped a beat. "Deploy interceptors! Now!" Her team leapt into action, relaying the command to the missile defense system. The Earth Defense Network had been in development for years, designed to handle small-scale threats, but nothing on this magnitude. As the first wave of alien missiles tore through the sky, Earth's interceptors soared up to meet them. "Impact in 5 seconds," Chen warned. The defense system responded with an ear-shattering roar as the missiles collided mid-air, exploding in a fiery cascade of energy. Mara watched, her breath held. It was working, Earth's defenses were holding. But only just. The first wave was nearly neutralized, but there were more coming. "Another wave incoming, Lieutenant," Chen said, his voice strained. Mara's thoughts raced. The alien fleet wasn't just attacking the surface. They were targeting the atmosphere, trying to cripple Earth's ability to fight back. But she wasn't about to let them win. "Send the ground forces to critical points," Mara ordered. "Coordinate with every military base. We need to hit them where it hurts." Above Earth, Zelotha's eyes narrowed as he watched the results of his first strike. His missiles had been intercepted by Earth's defenses, but the planet's systems were overloaded. His next move would be decisive. "Captain, Earth's interceptors are working overtime," Kale reported. "They're holding up well, but they won't last long against our full assault." Zeloth smirked. "Let's test their limits. Deploy the second wave, this time, we'll hit them where they're weakest." The alien fleet began to unleash wave after wave of bombardment, firepower that tore through the space between them and the surface. Zeloth could almost taste victory, until his communication panel flashed to life again. "Captain," the sensor officer said, his voice tinged with panic. They're firing back." Zeloth turned to the screen in disbelief. "Firing back?" he echoed. "How? They can't possibly." But the data didn't lie. Earth's defense systems weren't just holding, they were retaliating. A barrage of energy blasts erupted from Earth's surface, hurtling toward the alien fleet. Mara's hands tightened around the controls as she watched the alien fleet begin to respond. Earth's retaliatory strike had hit their ships hard, smaller, but far more accurate than the alien forces had anticipated. She could see the damage reports flashing across the screen, the alien ships faltering in their assault. "Direct hits on their left wing," Chen reported. "Their formation is breaking." Mara couldn't help the small smile that tugged at her lips. The battle was far from over, but humanity had just delivered a blow to the invaders. Earth was fighting back. And they weren't going down without a fight. "Keep the pressure on," Mara commanded. "We've got them on the ropes. Now let's finish it." The battle had only just begun, but Mara was confident of one thing: humanity wasn't going to let their planet fall without a fight. The aliens had underestimated them. And now, the cost of that mistake would become clear. In the vastness of space, Zeloth cursed under his breath. The humans were more resilient than he had anticipated. His fleet had underestimated their defenses, but that mistake would not be repeated. As the alien ships regrouped, the battle for Earth was far from over, and Zeloth was prepared to finish what had been started. The sky above Earth had turned into a chaotic battlefield. What had once been a peaceful, serene world was now an epicenter of destruction. But as the alien fleet struggled against the combined forces of Earth's military, something extraordinary was unfolding on the ground. In Washington, D.C., the world's military leaders gathered in a secure underground command center. The hum of advanced computers and communication systems filled the air, but the tension was deafening. Lieutenant Mara Williams stood before the enormous holographic map of Earth, her sharp eyes scanning the battle lines that stretched across continents. The alien fleet, though battered, had not been defeated. It had split into smaller units and continued launching waves of firepower toward Earth. But humanity was not backing down. Earth's military forces, united like never before, had launched counterattacks across the globe, utilizing everything from cutting-edge fighter jets to ancient artillery cannons. No one was standing idle. "Lieutenant, the Felker fleet has regrouped in the outer orbit," Chen reported, his voice tight with urgency. "They're reorganizing for a final strike." Mara didn't flinch. She had been anticipating this. "They think we'll run out of resources," she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "They think we'll break. But they're wrong." The sheer volume of weapons they were facing should have overwhelmed Earth's defenses, but humanity's ingenuity, their sheer will to survive, had proven to be their greatest weapon. In the face of annihilation, Earth had rallied, its people fighting not just for survival, but for their very identity. "We still have our ground forces in place," Chen added. "But they're preparing to drop landing parties." Mara's pulse quickened. The Felker weren't just targeting military bases anymore. They were going to strike at the heart of civilization. If they could establish a foothold on Earth's surface, the fight would become much harder. "Activate Phase 2 of the defense plan," Mara ordered, her voice steady despite the rising stakes. "Prepare for urban warfare. We need to hold the cities at all costs." In the midst of the chaos, on the alien flagship Vorith, Captain Zeloth stood in front of the massive viewport, his cold gaze locked onto the blue and green planet below. His fleet had sustained significant damage, but the humans' resistance had only fueled his determination. They had not only fought back, they had hit back harder than he expected. But he was not ready to admit defeat. "Captain," Kale's voice was sharp, filled with irritation. "We've been waiting for the signal. The humans have already begun deploying their last line of defense." Zeloth's lips curled into a sneer. "They think they've won, Kale. But they are gravely mistaken. We haven't begun to show them our true power." He turned to his subordinate. "Deploy the ground invasion forces. Let's make sure they understand the true meaning of defeat." Kale's eyes narrowed as the command was relayed. The Felker had only one objective now, a full-scale occupation. Zeloth knew that, despite the setbacks, once their soldiers hit Earth's soil, the humans would crumble. They had no idea what was coming. Back on Earth, in the heart of the battlefield, Mara's heart raced as she watched the situation unfold. A red dot on the holographic map indicated multiple alien landing ships descending through the atmosphere. "Incoming! They're coming in hot!" shouted Lieutenant Zhang, his voice echoing through the command center. The massive city-wide defense grid activated as the first wave of alien soldiers made contact with Earth's surface. The sound of explosions echoed across the map as weapons fire lit up the sky. But Earth's defenses weren't the only thing standing in their way. Mara's team was already deployed on the ground, equipped with advanced technology and fortified armor. They were humanity's last line of defense, and they weren't going down without a fight. "All units, engage! Hold the line!" Mara barked over the comms, her voice filled with unwavering determination. "This is it. Make every shot count." Across the cities, soldiers clashed with the Felker invaders in urban warfare. The streets, once bustling with everyday life, were now transformed into war zones. Buildings crumbled under the weight of laser fire and exploding missiles. Alien soldiers, clad in their black, impenetrable armor, stormed through the ruins, but Earth's forces were everywhere, using the environment to their advantage. Mara led her team through the ruins of a once bustling city block. The streets were filled with wreckage, burned-out vehicles, shattered glass, and the scent of scorched earth. But the team pressed on, knowing that failure was not an option. They could hear the heavy thuds of alien boots echoing in the distance, their footsteps growing nearer. "Lieutenant," Sergeant Alvarez said, his voice low and steady, "we've got incoming troops left flank." Mara raised her weapon and nodded. "Hold the position. We don't let them through." The team fell into position, taking cover behind a nearby crumbled wall. Alien forces were closing in, and every second counted. But as they fought back, Mara's mind raced. She knew that this wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a battle to show the invaders that Earth had no intention of becoming just another conquered world. "Ready, Lieutenant!" shouted Corporal Jenkins, his eyes focused as he loaded his weapon. "On my mark, fire at will," Mara commanded. "Remember, they don't know the terrain like we do. Use it to your advantage." Meanwhile, back on the Vorith, Zeloth watched the live feed of the ground battle, his anger bubbling just beneath the surface. The humans were tougher than expected, but they were still just that, humans. Weak. Fragile. They couldn't keep this up for long. "We have them surrounded," Kale reported, his voice sharp with anticipation. "Once we control the cities, we control Earth." Zeloth's gaze turned cold. "We'll give them a false sense of victory. But in the end they'll fall. All of them." But as he looked back to the planet below, something strange happened. The humans weren't falling back. They were fighting harder. They were pushing forward. Zeloth's eyes narrowed in realization. "Kale, something's wrong. The humans, they're not retreating. They're adapting. They're learning." "Impossible," Kale shot back. "They're just humans." Zeloth's lips pressed into a thin line. "No. They're not. These humans are different." Mara's breath came in sharp gasps as she fired another round at the advancing Felker soldiers. She could feel the weight of the battle pressing in on her, but there was something else, something driving her and her team forward. They had fought against all odds. They had held their ground when it seemed impossible. And now, the tide was beginning to turn. "We've got them on the ropes!" Sergeant Alvarez shouted, his voice filled with exhilaration. "Keep pushing!" The battle was far from over, but for the first time since the invasion began, Mara felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel: hope. The Felker had underestimated them. And that mistake would cost them everything. As the alien forces faltered, Mara whispered under her breath, "This is just the beginning." The battle for Earth was far from over, but humanity had proven one thing: no matter the odds, they would never surrender.